Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kyra here with another Awaken Chaos Era video. And in today's video, I'm going to be comparing the differences of the Magic Pass for Awaken Chaos Era versus the Forge Pass for Raid Shadow Legends. And comparing the difference in value, what you actually get between these two, what's better for free to play, and what's better for pay to play. And just overall, which is the better pass. And at the moment, I just kind of want to get right into it because I feel like this is a good discussion between the two games because they are so similar and the different monetization strategies between these two. And I want to discuss what that means for the players and also what that means for each business and where they're kind of going with this. I just think this is a good conversation topic because you get to see a drastic difference between the two different companies' strategies here. So first of all, just to kind of, if you guys are only following Awaken Chaos Era on this channel, you never played Raid, there is a lot of crossover here and the games are so similar that I think it's a good topic. But essentially, all the stuff you get here, and then this is a well-known monetization tactic when it comes to these games, is look at all these different currencies here. They want to confuse you in these currencies. You know, Awaken Chaos Era is no different. I'm not trying to, this is not a complete dunk on Raid session here, but all of these currencies are here to make it to where it's hard for your brain to figure this out. Even if you know what's going on here, it's still very difficult. Because essentially their concept is you have two different sides of your brain. One side is the more logical, but it takes a lot of energy to turn on. And then you got the lizard brain, that other side, that's where they're trying to go here, where they're making it difficult and they want you to use that one as much as possible. There's a lot of different concepts, and in this video right here in Let's Go Whaling, a pretty infamous video, if you ask me, from 2016, but it at least breaks down a lot of these monetization concepts. And this is only, this is already what, 6 years ago. So I'm sure there's a lot of advanced analytics and advanced techniques that they're using that are not covered in the scope of that video. That's even by that standard, leaves a lot of stuff out. But I do want to specifically reference this slide here later about that video. And also definitely watch that video if you haven't watched it and you play these games so you know what's going on. Because there's a lot of pretty insidious things that these companies use to try to extract as much money as possible from you. So that's one of the things I noticed right off the bat is just how many different currencies you see here off the rip. Also, the big thing about this is you see no heroes, you see no shards. When it comes to this, like pretty much like the big, for most people, highly coveted things. And then this is not even breaking down the fact that this battle pass is so much worse than the previous battle pass, I don't know, over a year ago, but that's such a small player base that actually is stuck around at that point that I don't think that's even though it's just pretty scummy that they did that, I don't think that's really going to make a dent in the player base there because, their whole point, it seems like Raid's monetization structure is to, have a set amount of things. And if people fall off the wagon, they don't really care. They've already got the money that they were expected out of you. And if you're frustrated enough to quit, then it's just a clean separation. They already got your money, and they're not going to waste resources in trying to ease, like if you're an escalated customer, essentially, they're not trying to like ease you back in. They're going to just be like, okay, well, fair enough. You're mad, and we're just going to drop you, kind of thing. And so most of the people that probably played back then, unless you're like a content creator or a pretty hardcore player, is still not playing from the time that they had a different battle pass where it was infinitely more value. There was some of the best epics in the game in Stag Knight, Frozen Banshee, and then you got a legendary hero, which is great value out of a battle pass in my opinion, but then they never put one again. And it's almost like what they had to do is they realized it was way too good and they had to really wait a very long time before they could actually re-release it. And it's infinitely worse than what it was before. Not only that, but all of this currency here is all stuff that is random. So you take this currency and you use this currency to make gear, or you use this currency to re-roll your gear. This is probably the big, very rare piece that you get from this, that all it is just essentially like in Awaken Chaos Era. Imagine you have a piece that's like a triple roll or whatever. It keeps whatever the amounts is rolled, but you just re-rolls the piece. So you could, for example, like let's say you had triple roll defense percentage, you re-roll it, now it's triple roll speed, which is like, super valuable in Raid kind of thing. That's what these pieces do. But notice how it's all RNG and it is only just resources. That's it. And then if you look at the difference between the free version and the paid version is massively different. It's like you get little peanuts for the free version, whereas you get a massive difference, even though it still is all RNG stuff that is in also a ton of different currencies to try to kind of confuse you and make you feel like you're getting more value than you actually are. Even if you do the math that, I think most people have, done the math and think it's actually a value, but these are the kind of things that they're doing here. And I think it's pretty messed up, in my opinion, when it comes to this. But also, I think from their perspective, there's another concept here and called anchoring, and where they set a crazy, like ludicrous price, and then they give you a deal on it immediately after. And you could just see a very blatant example of anchoring in this. And these concepts apply to both games. But I guess the point of this is that the extent that they're willing to go is a lot harder in Raid than it ever is in Awaken and other games. But also, if you look at the numbers on how like their player base versus how much money they're making, you can't really fault them almost, because they're killing it. If you look at the amount of interest in like Genshin, for example, versus the amount of money Genshin makes, yes, Genshin makes more, but if you look at the player base of Genshin, it's infinitely higher, but the money is like relatively close. Even though Genshin is pretty much blowing out. If you look at 60 million versus 20 million, but then if you look at the player base, that's pretty impressive that they're able to make like 20 million out of the player base based on the difference there. It's kind of my point there. But that's a whole nother topic, and there is a ton of data we don't have, so it's hard to say. I just think it's a good topic to discuss, even with the limited data we got. Is all. But back to anchoring. So here's a great example of anchoring. For example, you could buy an ancient shard here, $10. And then they also limit you, which is hilarious to me. But $10 for one ancient shard. Or you get a daily limit where you could buy it for $1 right there. Or you could go here with the limited special deals. And they have all of these special deals here, which lower it further. And that would be an example of anchoring. Even though they're trying to evaluate an ancient shard as normally $10. Which it totally isn't, and everyone knows it isn't, but it still is a tactic to try to trick you. Another example would be void shards. This is the same concept of anchoring. $30 a void shard. Hilarious. So now that we kind of get an idea there of what anchoring is, I think this Forge Pass is essentially trying to anchor what a Forge Pass is, and I think that's kind of what they're trying to do, because they're essentially, even though Awaken is the competition, it really is no contest at the moment, because Awaken's so new and also Raid is so dominant. So just keep that in mind on what they're trying to do here. And I want to say that they're like, hey, we're just going to try it. And they'll take the bad press. They'll do all that, but they're going to see where this goes, how much money this ends up making them. And if we see in a month from now a very similar battle pass, then we're going to know that it was probably pretty successful and it was profitable for them, which is unfortunate, because I think this is a pretty nasty Forge Pass. And I think if you look at all of the content creators in that game, I think they would all agree. Now let's actually go to now we got an idea of what's going on here, and plus some of the key concepts of what these companies are doing. Let's go over to Awaken right here. So this one, the big difference that you see here, first of all, you get an actual legendary hero out of every one of their battle passes, which I like a lot. It's a guaranteed thing. Here you go. You get to choose, okay, am I going to get on this battle pass? You get Hector, for example. He's a good hero. He's not great, but he is a guaranteed legendary hero that you get from here. Also, if you look at the difference in spread between the free and paid versions, it's not astronomical difference. You get 2 meal tickets versus 4. You get 2 versus 4. You get half as much experience. You get 2 3-star. Essentially, they just half it. They half the value there, which I think is great. And you're getting a guaranteed legendary, and you're actually getting shards. And a lot of the things are actually objective differences versus essentially almost like subjective, or you really have no idea what the value is because they're not guaranteed. It's here's a currency that you put in and it randomly gives you something, versus this is, I know every time I put this in, I'm going to be leveling up a move. Every time I put this in, I know I'm going to be almost leveling up a hero, kind of thing. So that's the big difference here. And you could argue from a business standpoint that Awaken is leaving money on the table if their direct competitor is able to do something so different and charge $20. We don't know the numbers on which ones are selling better in percentage to their player base. which ones are actually causing more goodwill that potentially could be giving them more business down in the future. We don't know any of that. So we don't really know which one's more successful or not. Maybe they're, as a business, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're objectively showing like, here's your hero, you know what you're getting. Whereas in the raid one, it's all kind of up there. People are thinking like, oh, maybe I'm going to finally hit my quad roll speed or whatever with their Chaos Ore. They don't know. It's all kind of in their own head. They're going to make it out to be better than it actually is, where it's a little bit more concrete here in Awaken Chaos Era. They're like, oh, I know exactly what I'm getting. I don't want to pay this, or I know exactly what I'm getting. I'm definitely going to pay this. You know, we never really know what's going on here behind the scenes and what's actually being bought. But I think it is interesting seeing the difference on two competitors, but one is so much better in value than the other. Also, I do think it's kind of Awaken Chaos Era's business strategy to be the value proposition versus Raid, because Raid is the established product that has been around for a very long time versus Awaken, who is the new kid on the block. They need to pull people away, and the only way you're going to pull people away is to give massive differences in value here, whether it be quality of life, new content that's fast, or just blatantly better deals. And I think that's kind of what they're going on here. And maybe that's another reason why it's a compounding difference of the level of value you're getting over here in Awaken versus Raid. That's pretty much what I want to talk about when it comes to these guys. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer on what's actually better and what's actually worse when it comes to value here. But I wanted to go a little deeper on that and kind of talk about the actual core concepts of what these businesses are trying to do, on how they're trying to trick, extract money from you, essentially. And then also the last thing I just want to leave you guys with is definitely watch this video. This video is amazing at allowing you to understand this stuff. This is so good, and don't fall victim to this stuff. You know, even though we play these games, we like these games. The reason why they're updated so much is because of how much money they're actually making. But at least be armed with as much, protection as possible, so you're not a victim when it comes to this, because it's your money at the end of the day. You're the one responsible for it. So be prepared going into these things, so you're not taken advantage of. Don't be the sucker here, even though, essentially if you're paying for these games, we're all the sucker kind of, but we're wanting to, at least you had a more informed decision when you do this. So that's pretty much what I want to leave you guys with today. Let me know in the comments below what you guys have to think about this. This is a pretty dense topic, not just Awaken Chaos obviously better when it comes to the value of the battle pass. I think there's a lot of interesting things to discuss when it comes to this. And with that, guys, I'm out. Peace.